Speaker Nancy Pelosi claiming House Democrats have the, quote, legal authority to demand 6 years of President Trump's tax returns. But so far, the White House is not budging. So how will all of this play out? Former White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Fox News contributor Karl Rove joins us now to discuss. Karl, after 2 years, they found 6103. Is that going to be the magic bullet for them?
Well, Congress does have the right. The Ways and Means Committee chairman has the right to request the tax return of any American citizen, but is subject to strict privacy rules and cannot be revealed publicly. But let's not kid ourselves. The excuse that they're offering for this, that they're conducting oversight to make certain that the IRS is doing its job. Senator Chuck Grassley earlier today called him out on the Senate floor and said, if you wanted to actually make certain the IRS was doing its job, you ought to ask the Inspector General of the Department of the Treasury to find out if it's doing its job. That's not what this is all about. This is an attempt to get the president's tax return and try and find anything they can find in order to bring him down. And, Charles, this is every American, Republican or Democrat, ought to be concerned about weaponizing the IRS in this manner so that you can use the IRS to get the tax return of a political opponent in order to do something to embarrass them or to attack them.
And, Karl, I mean, this is not the first time the Democrats have been accused of weaponizing the IRS or wanting to.
Oh, no, we had the whole issue with the IRS being run, the nonprofit division denying nonprofit status to conservative groups while granting it to liberals. But I'm not finished, Charles. We need to look at what they're saying. I saw today Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, one of the top 5 Democrats in the House, part of the House leadership. And he said, look, we have an out-of-control executive branch. That's how he explained why they were doing this. We need to, we have a responsibility to find waste and fraud, and we got to do something about the culture of corruption that's coming out of the White House. And that's why he said we needed to have the returns. Well, what kind of evidence do they have? Is this a criminal investigation? Then there ought to be a scintilla of evidence that this is true. He said, we'll see where this leads us. They have no idea what's in those tax returns, and yet they're abusing this power in order to go after the president. And frankly, it is reprehensible. It's like a thug in all candor. And who doesn't think that being a New York real estate guy, that Donald J. Trump has not had his tax returns audited by the IRS with a fine-tooth comb for decades?
Yeah, I saw the stack of them. So, but it feels like many have found him guilty, and now they're just looking for proof. To your point, you would have to believe that they would find, because it seems subjective, if they were to get these returns in the strictest privacy, that it would be subjective for them to think of it if it's elevated to a level where the public must see them.
Yeah. Well, how much do you, how do you think, how likely do you think it is if they get the returns that they're going to be leaked? And B, how likely do you think it is that on a straight party line vote, the House Ways and Means Committee might vote to release Donald Trump's tax records as opposed to anybody else's? Once you weaponize it, once you make it possible for one side to do that, it's possible for the other side to do it. And nobody in America should think that it does our country any good to have the House Ways and Means Committee do a fishing expedition in the tax returns of anybody they want. We had that happening under Lyndon Johnson and Herbert with J. Edgar Hoover. We're not a third world country. We should not be operating this way.
Karl, while I have you here, I wanted to ask you about your op-ed saying former Vice President Joe Biden needs to stop apologizing if he wants to become president.
Yeah, look, I think it's a mistake for him to go around saying, well, you know what, I'm sorry about my vote for the crime bill, and I'm sorry about this, and I'm sorry about that. I think he hit the right tone, which is to say, look, I understand that I'm sort of a handsy kind of guy, touchy-feely, and I understand I've offended some people by that, and I've encroached on your space, and so I'm going to learn from that, and it's my responsibility not to do that. But most of this stuff is just like, here's a guy who served in public life for a long time, cast a lot of votes, and now he's being attacked for something that he's been doing for 20 or 30 years. If people thought this was a problem, they should have been talking about it when he was elected in the 1970s or when he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the 1990s or vice president under Barack Obama. But now, weaponized by the left, not to overuse that word, opposition research dumped on him on the eve of his entering the presidential contest. It's like a new welcome wagon gift we give presidential candidates. You get an Oppo research package dumped on you.
We got 30 seconds, Karl, but I do want to ask, though, is it ironic to you, though, that this is probably after years of the Democrats and these sort of political tactics that it's imploding on their own party?
Well, yeah, and look, the point of my article, though, was to say, look, right now conventional wisdom is that he is in deep trouble. I said maybe he's a stock, to use your terms, that's undervalued. Let's see how he performs, because he's got a lot of advantages. He leads the Democratic pack. He's got a record that he can defend. He could be a traditional Democrat in a field of people who are racing to the far left. So my point was, let's see how he performs here in the next couple of months. He might surprise us all.
He might. Hey, Karl, you never surprise us. You always bring it. We know that, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Charles.